Well, I'm Christine Greenhow, and I'm nervous, I'll just say that. I saw that once in a TED Talk where the speaker said he was nervous, and then it just seemed to dissipate, and he did fine, so I'm nervous. So I'm Christine Greenhow from Michigan State University, and I'd like to offer a few thoughts on the transformative potential of social media as we continue our discussion on the future of cyber learning. To that end, some observations. First, recently, the camera manufacturer Kodak announced it was filing for bankruptcy, which was particularly sad to me because I remember being a flash checker on a camera assembly line in high school. Some say that Kodak failed to anticipate the rise in digital cameras and the rise in cameras and phones. But really, Kodak underestimated the shifts in our practices. That people aren't so much taking photographs nowadays to preserve personal memories that they then print and store, but we're taking photographs to communicate, to build our identities, and to share them in online social networks. Another example from the fashion industry. I love fashion. It used to be that fashion editors and department store buyers determined which pieces of a designer's collection made their way to market and onto our backs. But now companies are inviting customers into the production, even design process. For example, you can watch runway shows streamed live over the internet and vote for your favorite looks, helping influence production. You can even choose patterns and materials in web applications like this one here. You can choose your fabric and style to make a one-of-a-kind shirt for yourself. And remember, in Egypt, people use social media to shape public opinion on a global scale, to cultivate networks of other people and change the institution. And in journalism, we see people using social media, social network sites, becoming reporters, changing not just how news is produced, but what constitutes news and who decides. And then in healthcare, people are joining sites, social network sites, patients like me, breaking down isolation and privacy barriers to share information and get information about their conditions and different treatment plans. And all these examples suggest that there are effects through people's use of social media, not only on the means of production, but on the essential practices and goals of these sectors. And the benefits may be not just more engaged citizens and consumers and patients, but economic benefits, greater efficiencies where organizations can estimate and meet people's demands. And of course, a major sector of our population that's participating in these trends are young people. Did you know that in the United States, the #1 out-of-school computer-using activity among teenagers is online social networking? So today I come here not with answers, but I think these trends beg the questions of, can social media, like social network sites, social networking applications, and coming iterations thereof, help people learn anything of consequence and importance in their future lives, such as the things we've talked about that we care about: development of interest in STEM careers, interest in STEM learning, understanding social scientific problems. Can people's engagement in social media help stem the dissatisfaction young people feel towards school and their disengagement with public life? And if young people were learning in productive ways with social media, what changes would that suggest to our own institutionalized practices and goals in education? And what educational or societal or technological or economic benefits might we derive? I think these are fascinating questions, and I hope some of you might be interested in exploring them with me. Of course, going down this line of inquiry, as interesting as it is, encounters steep resistance, both in the public and in our field, in education. Because oftentimes young people's use of social media is seen at best as a waste of time, and at worst as harmful to people's academic learning, to youth development, to their safety, privacy, and intellectual property, despite evidence. So let's pause and consider, how widely popular and youth-initiated social network sites might, in fact, have design features that are synergistic with the constructive and social ways people learn. And what might some of those be? For example, personal profiling, right? Ways that people can register, signal their interest and identity. And researchers outside of education and in education are looking at identity formation and development within these spaces. Or what about these sites are one-stop shop for many different ways of communicating, offering people and learners choices about their forms of expression, offering low-cost ways of sharing their ideas and experiences, and offering multiple routes to participation, even, let's say, for reluctant learners. And people are looking at new forms of communication, new literacies within these spaces. Or what about this? The hallmark of social network sites are people's abilities to make their connections visible. I can see who's in your network, you can see who is in mine. And that may lead to not only network building, but diversity in networks, to maintaining networks across different aspects of our lives, and the ability to tap into the resources of other people's networks that I might not otherwise have access to, what we call social capital. And we know that people in communication and in education have found social capital benefits in social network sites. And so you're all familiar with MySpace and Facebook, but the problem is these activities, as interesting and connected to informal learning as they may be, seem very disconnected from the kinds of formal learning and our formal learning agendas that we've been talking about today. So with that, I'd like to offer another example from my own work, a project called Hotdish, designed as an open source social networking application launched and implemented within Facebook, but looks different from Facebook, that sought to bridge young people's naturally occurring practices in these global social network sites with, and the informal learning that may happen therein, with formal learning objectives. So the goal of this space was to foster people's interest, their sharing of information, commentary, problem solving, and civic engagement around environmental science and climate change issues. And so here we have, again, that personalization, that signaling of identity in the Hotdish profile, which is different from the Facebook profile. And we have not just user-driven content or youth-generated content, which is so important to engaging kids in learning, that they can bring their experiences into the space, but also a place for experts to contribute information. So we partnered with environmentalists who helped contribute informative articles into this space. And so you can see on the right-hand side, I'm sorry that's somewhat blurry, that again, we offer many different ways of communicating in these spaces, low barriers to entry, low barriers to participation. You can post your own story, you can share a story, you can comment on stories, you can vote up stories, you can have a hand in shaping what the community values. And your contributions as the learner, as the user, are recognized. With each of your contributions, your personal profile is tagged. So you can see in the geothermal power example, posted by, in this case, anonymous, I'm preserving someone's identity, but your picture and your name would follow there, to hopefully get members interested in connecting with what other people are doing on a personal level as well as at the community level. And in addition to, 1 minute. So I'll just move through by saying, in addition to provoking commentary in this space, we sought to pose problem-solving challenges, engaging people in citizenry within their community around pro-environmental behaviors, and of course, growing the network, hopefully leading to scale, that the data gathering and data mining capabilities that Neil talked about, which I would love to learn more about, since what I have to say next is, so we had about 2,000 participants in this project, and about 20% of them consented to be in our study. And at this point, I have to stop and say that this is a small-scale exploratory study that is ongoing. So I would love to have the answers and conclusions nicely up here for you today. But what I can tell you is these are some of the areas that we're interested in and that we're pursuing, and would love to share some preliminary findings on. If any of you are working on similar projects like this or interested in some of these issues or have insight into these issues in your own projects, I'd love to talk with you. Where's my time? I'm out. OK. So with that, I would just say that I sought to give you just a few examples of what I think is a very nascent and potentially productive area, social-mediated cyber learning research. And I hope that some of you will join me in helping to generate more examples and advance this area. Thank you.